Good morning and a warm welcome to everyone to the fourth day of the Faculty Development Program on Machine Learning Algorithms for 5G Mobile Networks. I take pleasure in introducing the first speaker of the day, Dr. P. Maheshwaran. Dr. P. Maheshwaran obtained his PhD degree from IITDM Kanchipuram in the area of wireless communication. At present, he is serving as an assistant professor in the Department of ECE, NIT Trichy. Between 2011 and 2013, he was with Tata Consultancy Services as a system engineer. He briefly served as an assistant professor in the Department of ECE, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Chennai, from 2017 to 2018. From 2019 to 2020, he was with IIT Madras as a postdoctoral fellow. His research areas include wireless communication, signal processing, cooperative communication, MIMO communication system, index modulation, and spatial modulation. Without any further delay, I would like to hand over the session to the speaker. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Kirtana. And first, I would like to thank Professor Selvaraj sir for giving me this opportunity to present my work on spatial modulation and space shift keying. So, as the host introduced, I am Maheshwaran. I work in National Institute of Technology. And today's presentation, to give the outline of today's presentation, we have preliminaries. So in the preliminaries, I would be presenting what is the need for spatial modulation and space shift keying, what is the motivation behind that, and what are the objectives of a common wireless communication engineer. So from that, how the motivation for going to spatial modulation and space shift keying is propping up. So that will be seen in preliminaries, followed by space shift keying. So space shift keying is a recent modulation technique which uses the index of the antennas to transmit information. So what is the the working principle of space shift keying, and how do we program the concept in MATLAB? We'll see in space shift keying, second point. And spatial modulation is a generalized version, a slightly generalized version of space shift keying. So how do we program spatial modulation in MATLAB, and what is the working principle of spatial modulation? That we will see in third point. And if time permits, we will see dynamic SSK BPSK. So dynamic SSK BPSK is a transmit diversity scheme that we have introduced. So what is the idea behind dynamic SSK BPSK, and how do we do the coding for dynamic SSK BPSK in MATLAB? We will see that. So this is with the condition that if we have time. So if we have time, we will see this. Otherwise, we will see both space shift keying and spatial modulation. So this is the outline of today's presentation. So let me go to the preliminaries. So the main objectives of wireless communication engineer, the design effort of a wireless communication engineer will be to achieve high energy efficiency. So that means spend less energy. So spend less energy for more number of bits transmitted. So that is high energy efficiency. We need a high number of bits to be transmitted, but we want less energy to be spent on this. Kirtana, am I audible to you and visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if there are some trouble in viewing or listening me, just prompt me.
Yes,
Sure,
sir.
sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah. So this is the main objective of a wireless communication engineer, to achieve high energy efficiency, spend less for transmitting more. And the second objective will be to reduce the bandwidth occupied. So reduce the bandwidth occupied, but transmit more number of bits. So reduce the bandwidth, transmit more number of bits. That goes into spectral efficiency. And high reliability is also another parameter. So what is high reliability? Let's say, for example, we fix the number of bits. So this is fixed. But we have some parameter to calculate the reliability of wireless communication. That parameter is called bit error rate. How do we reduce the bit error rate for a given spectral efficiency? So that is called reliability. So how do we achieve better reliability? So we always have to find out some modulation scheme or transmitter design that achieves high reliability in addition to high energy efficiency and spectral efficiency. And finally, we also have to address simple circuit design. Whatever we design that meets these goals should also be simple in terms of implementation. So we have to find out a transmitter which is simple both in the sense of a transmitter and receiver side. So these are the goals of a wireless communication engineer, and designers usually trade off among the above parameters to meet the design goal. So let's say, for example, in 4G LTE communication, we sacrifice energy efficiency because we want high spectral efficiency. Okay, so in 4G, we sacrifice energy efficiency in order to get the spectral efficiency. If you remember, if you have a smartphone, which has its internet turned on all the time, your battery will not last long because you are getting high spectral efficiency, but you do not address energy efficiency. So that is the type of trade-off designers usually do. And we have this spatial modulation and space shift keying, which also has certain type of advantages. It also has disadvantages, but primary advantage of space shift keying and spatial modulation is that the design of transmitter and receiver is very simple. That means the circuit involved in transmitter and receiver is very simple. And we also have to look out how to improve the reliability in spatial modulation. So this is the question we have addressed in this one. So how to improve reliability? So we addressed that question using this system model. So reliability is another thing which we need to focus on. So that is addressed in this system model, dynamic SSK BPSK. So reliability in the sense of reducing the bit error rate for a given spectral efficiency, number of bits to be transmitted. So this is the objective of a wireless communication engineer, to trade off among different parameters. So we prioritize some parameter and we give less priority to some other parameters in order to market the product. And for our work, what we have focused on is reliability and simple circuit design. Okay, spatial modulation is known for simple circuit design. How it is known for simple circuit design, we will go and see that. So before that, why do we go for something called as multiple input, multiple output? So this is called as multiple input and multiple output. Two examples are given here. So this is the transmitter and this is the receiver. Okay, and you can see that this is a conventional transmitter where we only have one transmit antenna, and that one transmit antenna will be able to send only one symbol at a time, and let's say, for example, this is a 16 QAM constellation. 16 QAM means that it can send 4 bits at a time. Okay, and we have a wireless communication channel, fading channel, and the system can send 4 bits per channel use because we have 16 QAM. And at the receiver, I have 2 receiver antennas. Okay, so 2 receiver antennas. So the same signal from the transmitter will go to the first receiver. The same signal will undergo different type of fading and then go to the second receiver. Both of the signals will be uncorrelated to each other, And for this, what is the bit error rate or the reliability measure? So same way, like we also have another type of transmitter design here. This transmitter here sends a QPSK signal. So this is a QPSK signal. So QPSK will be able to send 2 bits at a time. And note that we have two transmit antennas. We have two transmit antennas, and because we have two transmit antennas, we can send two symbols. And we are sending two symbols because of that 2 times of 2 bits will be transmitted, and that will be equal to 4 bits. So what we essentially do here is split out this 16 QAM constellation into a smaller constellation, and then we are transmitting it over two transmitter antennas. And at the receiver, we all same type of receiver is used. In order to compare the performance of the transmitter, we are not changing the receiver, we are just changing the transmitter. The question is, why do we need MIMO? Why do we need this configuration? Why do we need two transmitter antennas? So if we address this, we will have the motivation to go for spatial modulation also, because spatial modulation is a special type of MIMO. Okay, so why do we need this type of configuration? The answer to that is addressed in terms of bit error rate, and you can see that here. So the green color curve here represents the bit error rate of single transmit antenna with 16 QAM modulation, and the red color curve here represents the bit error rate of VBLAST transmitter. That is, we have two transmitter, and each of the transmitter sends a QPSK signal. Each of the transmitter sends a QPSK signal. And you can see that for, let's say for example, a bit error rate of 10 power minus 2, you can see that the energy consumed by VBLAST is lesser than the energy consumed by single antenna transmitter. You can see that here. You have two energy values here, energy 1 and energy 2. And obviously energy 1 is lesser than energy 2. So that means VBLAST consumes lesser power for a given reliability. So this is why we go for MIMO. This is why we go for MIMO. But this is not the only advantage, because anything we have in practical scenario will always come with certain disadvantages. So something comes with advantage, it doesn't mean it only has advantages, it also has disadvantages. So what is the disadvantage here? Instead of single transmitter antenna, we have two transmitter antennas here. We have two transmitter antennas here, and two transmitter antennas are sending two symbols, S1 and S2. And S1 and S2, since they are QAM symbols, they need to have their own RF chain. They need to have their own RF chain. So here we have the number of RF chains as 1, but in this case the transmitter requires 2 RF chains. So it is like the transmitter complexity is slightly increasing at the cost of better bit error rate. We get better bit error rate, but the number of RF chains at the transmitter is increasing. So by RF chain, I mean the combination of mixer and RF amplifier and other combination. And before the mixer, we will also have IQ modulator. So this together is called as an RF chain. So this is the motivation why we usually go for MIMO, because it provides lesser bit error rate if we reduce the constellation from a bigger value to a smaller value. On the other hand, we get circuit complexity. So this is the trade-off. Okay. So the complexity in terms of the RF chains at the transmitter is given here. So the conventional MIMO system, as we have discussed now, just now, has multiple RF chains. We have multiple RF chains. In the previous example, I have only showed RF chains equal to 2. Here they are using LT RF chains. So LT RF chains are there, and input to the RF chains are taken from the baseband unit. Baseband unit is nothing but the binary data, zeros and ones, and those zeros and ones are getting converted to symbols, S1 or in general SI. And those symbols are like transmitted from each RF chain using IQ modulator and mixer RF amplifier, this chain, and this will be connected to the RF switch, and RF switch will choose the antenna to be connected to each of the RF chain. Okay, and at the receiver again we have multiple RF chains here, one RF chain for each receiving antenna, and RF chain at the receiver again will have mixer in the sense it down converts. Okay, so mixer in the sense it down converts the incoming signal, and this will be followed by band pass filter and detector. So this is a chain of hardware. So RF chain is a chain or cascade of different hardware. So at the receiver also we have LR number of RF chains, and RF switch connects different RF chains to different antennas. So you can connect different RF chains to different antennas. So that's possible. The disadvantage here is, let's say for example, I'll go to the next one. So let's say for example, we have the time domain, and S1 starts from first antenna at certain time. Let's call that as T0. And exactly at the same time, you should also send S2 from the second antenna. So that means there should be no delay between the transmission of S1 and S2 from first and second antenna respectively. So this is called as inter-antenna synchronization. Inter-antenna synchronization. And inter-antenna synchronization means that we have two symbols here, and both of the symbols should start exactly at the same time from the two antennas. So this assumption is very important for detection at the receiver. So this is one challenge in multiple RF chain transmitter, and VBLAST is the transmitter we have recently seen. So this is in short called as VBLAST. Okay, so that is one of the issue. So it has to be synchronized among many RF chains. So that's why we go for something called as single RF chain MIMO. So if we go for single RF chain MIMO, we only send one symbol. Let's say for example S1, and there is only one RF chain, and we do not have to go and do the inter-antenna synchronization, because we only send S1, and that too starts from only one RF chain. So there is no multiple RF chains, and there is no need for multiple RF chain synchronization, inter-antenna synchronization. So this problem can be overcome. And see, let's say for example, in this example, we are able to send two symbols, S1 and S2. So we are able to multiplex two symbols. So that means if S2 is able to convey 2 bits, the same can be conveyed by S1 also. So effectively we have 2 plus 2 4 bits. 2 plus 2 4 bits. But if you go and see this one, we only send S1. So let's say for example, if this is conveying only 2 bits, where else the extra 2 bits will come from? We cannot multiplex it because we only have one RF chain. So how do we achieve the extra 2 bits of spectral efficiency? So this question is answered by spatial modulation. This question is answered by spatial modulation. And in spatial modulation, we have single RF chain at the transmitter, but the number of antennas will be larger. So let's say there will be NT number of antennas at the transmitter. So these NT number of antennas, one of the antenna will be chosen for sending the S1 symbol. So that way, by the choice of the transmitter antenna, you can multiplex 2 more bits in addition to the 2 bits being transmitted by the symbol S1. So how do we multiplex the extra 2 bits? I just said that we can choose one of the antenna, and the choice of the antenna will convey the extra 2 bits of information. But how does that really happen? We will see that in a short while. But at the moment, think that single RF chain is a better alternative to multiple RF chain, because single RF chain overcomes inter-antenna synchronization problem. This is number one. And the second one is single RF chain transmitter requires only one RF chain. And RF chain is nothing but an electronic component. And if we have only one RF chain, electronics involved is simple, and the energy consumption will also be reduced. So that is another advantage we get from single RF chain transmitters. So these are the advantages. The disadvantage here is we are not able to send many symbols. We are only able to send one symbol, S1, along with the choice of antenna. So we can only multiplex maximum 2 symbols at a time. But if you go for VBLAST or conventional MIMO, let's say for example we have LT RF chains, LT symbols can be multiplexed. So number of RF chain, let's say for example is LT, we can send LT number of bits, so that spectral efficiency will be LT multiplied by B, where B is the number of bits conveyed by each RF chain. So we always have disadvantages and advantages going hand in hand, and it's the job of the design engineer to trade off one of them and choose the other. So that's about multiple RF chain systems. So this example here is called VBLAST, and VBLAST is practically used if you are using Wi-Fi 802.11ax. We use MIMO. So we use 2-stream MIMO in Wi-Fi 802.11ax. Okay, so VBLAST is practically used in Wi-Fi. Okay, so it sends 2 streams of information over 2 antennas that are sufficiently spaced apart. And we have something else here called as transmit diversity. What is this? And you can compare these two. S1 is again sent here just the same. So in the first time slot, whatever we do here in the spatial multiplexing is also done here. S1 is transmitted from first antenna, S2 is transmitted from second antenna. But what distinguishes transmit diversity scheme from spatial multiplexing is the second time slot. Same symbols are transmitted in the second time slot, but with a little bit of manipulation, signal manipulation. So we get S1, make a conjugate of it. So here C conjugate represents A minus JB, where C is nothing but A plus JB. Okay, so we take the S1, take the conjugate of that and transmit it from second antenna, and we take S2, take the conjugate of that and then put a minus sign and then transmit it from first antenna. So this type of signal processing is done in the second time slot, but we are again transmitting the same symbol once again. So it's like you are talking to a person who is having impaired hearing. So you are repeating the same sentence twice with the hope that the hearing impaired person will be able to decipher what you are saying. So same kind of thing happens here, only that bit of signal manipulation is done here, signal processing is done here. So that will convey the information in a better way in a more reliable way, in the sense it reduces the bit error rate. So just like the person who has impaired hearing will be able to get the message without error if you are repeating the same sentence twice to him. Transmit diversity here sends the same symbols twice with little bit of signal manipulation in the hope that at the receiver we get bit error rate reduced. That means the confusion is reduced, just like the person who does not hear properly. Okay, so this is the transmit diversity, and our work, what we have done is we focused on transmit diversity for spatial modulation. We focused on transmit diversity for spatial modulation. So that is going to be the third work here. So that is the last work, and if time permits, I will cover dynamic SSK, BPSK, but I will try to cover space shift keying spatial modulation with MATLAB programming. So to sum everything, the main drawback of conventional MIMO system is increased complexity. Increased complexity because the number of RF chain increases, and that too increases the circuit complexity. And obviously, if you increase circuit complexity, energy and power consumption is going to high, and the equipment is going to cost high. And one more thing that comes as a consequence of using multiple RF chains at the transmitter is called inter-channel interference. So what is this inter-channel interference? So let's say, for example, we have two transmitter antennas, and let's say, for example, one receiver antenna. So this antenna will be having a channel coefficient of H1. This antenna will be having a channel coefficient of H2. And we are sending, let's say, S1 from first antenna, S2 from second antenna. So what will be the received signal at the single antenna receiver? So that is given here as Y. Y will be nothing but H1 times S1, but that is not the only signal you receive in the first antenna, sorry, at the receiver antenna. You also get the signal from the second antenna. So that will also add up here, H2 multiplied by S2. And in addition to this, we will also get some noise at the receiver. That noise will be given by the variable N. So what we essentially get here is S1 is interfering with S2, and S2 is interfering with S1. So it's a mutual interference caused by one symbol to the other. And this is called as inter-channel interference. And this happens whenever we are using multiple RF chain transmitter, because multiple RF chain transmitter uses multiple RF chains, and it also sends multiple symbols. And those multiple symbols will cause interference to each other at the receiver, and that is called as inter-channel interference. So this is going to increase the complexity of the receiver, because at the receiver we have to decode S2 and S1 together. So that means you have to do certain signal processing at the receiver, so that you get the S1 and S2 decoupled and then demodulated properly. And we have already seen what is inter-antenna synchronization. So inter-antenna synchronization is another disadvantage of multiple RF chain transmitter. And obviously, multiple RF chain transmitter requires multiple RF chains. So RF complexity will be high, and the equipment will be costly. So it will become more expensive and bulky. And this is a consequence of having multiple RF chains, energy consumption, high energy consumption. So all of these will motivate us to go for spatial modulation and space shift keying, because spatial modulation and space shift keying avoids inter-channel interference, because we only send one symbol at a time, and at the receiver we will be getting only one symbol. We will not get this component. So because of that, inter-channel interference will be avoided. Inter-antenna synchronization is also avoided because we are not using two RF chains, we are just using one RF chain. And multiple RF chain obviously is overcome because we only use one RF chain. Energy consumption is also reduced because one RF chain only is used. So that is the motivation for going to space shift keying and spatial modulation. So far, any doubts, any queries, any difficulty in hearing or viewing my screen?
No, sir. Everything is perfect.
Okay. So any queries? Okay, I take your silence for go ahead signal. And space shift keying. So let's go and see what is actually space shift keying. So let's say, for example, we have a 4 antenna transmitter like this. So this is antenna 1 at the transmitter, 2 and 3 and 4 at the transmitter. And we have a receiver here. Let's say, for example, we have a receiver here, receiver antenna. And receiver antenna receives the signal after the signal undergoes fading from the channel. So the channel here will be nothing but different types of buildings we have here. And let's say, for example, if we have a car or any fast moving vehicle, so this will be like causing reflection and then diffraction, scattering, every type of mechanism will be there. So signal will undergo all of those physical mechanisms like scattering, diffraction, Doppler shift, everything will be there. And everything together is modeled in a simple term called as this H matrix. Okay, so what we transmit from first antenna will undergo a different experience. So that means different type of fading, different type of delay, and different type of attenuation. And what we transmit from the second antenna will again experience a totally different delay, fading, and attenuation. So this can be like seen as a drawback also, and this can also be seen as an advantage, because if you send one symbol from first antenna, let's say, for example, if you get a 0 0 at the input of SSK modulator, you will just activate the antenna 1, and antenna 1, whenever it is activated, it will send an unmodulated carrier cosine signal, and that cosine signal, whenever it goes into the fading channel and comes out of the fading channel, will have a different type of attenuation, delay, and Doppler, and these parameters will be totally different. So let's say, for example, that parameter in short is called as H1, where H1 represents the sum effect of delay, Doppler, and attenuation. So this H1 will be totally different from H2. So whenever you are activating the second antenna with a cosine signal, and that cosine signal enters the fading channel and comes out of it, and at the receiver you are receiving that signal, you will be totally seeing a different version of the cosine signal with different attenuation, different delay, and different Doppler. So that is disadvantage for somebody, but it is also an advantage, because he can clearly identify which antenna is transmitting the signal, because he can understand that if you are receiving H2 value, you can understand that antenna 2 was activated, and if you are receiving H1 value, you can understand that antenna 1 was activated. And you can always do a mapping between the antenna index and the transmitted bit, because we are just mapping or activating the antenna based on the incoming symbols. So 0 0 will correspond to transmitter 1, and 0 1 will correspond to transmitter 2. Henceforth, so on till fourth antenna. Okay, so you can clearly identify what antenna is activated, and based on that, what bit pattern was transmitted. So this is actually an advantage, provided the values of H1, H2, H3, H4 are not equal. So this is very good whenever we have Hi not equal to Hj, whenever J and I are from 1 to Nt. So this is actually an advantage. So that advantage is harvested in space shift keying, which is a special form of spatial modulation. So we'll save spatial modulation for later time. At the moment, understand what is phase shift keying. We activate different antennas. Different antennas give rise to different type of channel coefficient at the receiver. Those channel coefficients will be unique for each transmit antenna. And because we are able to identify what value is received at the receiver, H1 or H2, H3 or H4, we will be able to identify the transmitter antenna and hence the bits transmitted. So this is the working principle behind SSK. And in SSK, the input bit stream is mapped onto the index of the transmit antenna. So remember, this is mapped to the index of the transmit antenna because we map 0, 0 to first antenna, and this first antenna is nothing but the index of the transmit antenna. So just like we have 5 fingers, each finger can be indexed with one number. So similarly, you have 4 antennas. Each antenna can be indexed with one value, and that value will correspond to a bit pattern. That's all. And the spectral efficiency of SSK is log base 2 of NT. See this one, we have 2 bits here. So these 2 bits can be used to activate one of the 4 antennas. And if we were having 8 antennas here, let's say for example, if we are having 8 antennas here, to activate one of the 8 antennas, we may need the third bit. So we may need the third bit. So we need 3 bits to activate one out of 8 antennas. So that in short gives you the number of bits conveyed as log base 2 of NT. So this is the number of bits that can be conveyed. And in other words, the number of antennas needed to convey B bits is nothing but 2 power B. So let's say for example, if the value of B here is 10, you want to convey 10 bits at a time. So what will happen is number of antennas will be turning out to be 1024 because 2 power 10 is 1024. You cannot accommodate 1024 antennas. So that is one disadvantage of SSK. So this is the working principle behind SSK. So 0, 0 corresponds to first antenna. Similarly, 0, 1 will correspond to the second antenna. 0, 1 will correspond to the second antenna. And as we have seen, H1 value and H2 value will be totally different from each other because we have the spacing between the antennas. Let's say for example, this is distance d. This distance d will be greater than or equal to lambda by 2. And lambda is the wavelength of the signal that we transmit. Let's say for example, we are transmitting a cosine signal from the antenna 1 and that cosine signal has certain frequency fc. And this is nothing but an electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetic wave travels at the velocity of light. So from that you can find out, the value of lambda. From that you can find out the value of lambda. So C will be nothing but FC into lambda. So from that you can find out the value of lambda. So lambda will be nothing but C by FC. So if we place the antennas apart from each other by distance of lambda by 2, the value of H1 will be totally different from value of H2 and other values. And that is the actual idea or the that is the path which is based on which is used to identify the transmitted bit pattern. And in the beginning we have seen that the fading channel actually gets the transmitted signal to undergo Doppler shift, diffraction, scattering and attenuation. And all of these physical phenomena is summarized in one matrix called H. And H matrix is nothing but matrix looks like this. So let's say for example we only have one receiver antenna. So we will have value from first antenna to the receiver, second antenna to the receiver, third to the receiver, and fourth to the receiver. So in this case, the matrix here will look like, the matrix here will obviously have number of rows and number of columns. And number of rows here will correspond to the number of receiver at the receiver side. And since we have only one receiver here, NR will be equal to 1. So that's why here in this example, we only have one row for H matrix. And we have NT here, and this NT corresponds to the number of transmitter antenna. And in this example, we have NT equal to 4. That's why we have 4 columns for H. And how do we represent mathematically which transmitter antenna is activated? So we have seen mathematical representation of the fading channel, and we have also seen that the unique channel signature given by the fading channel is used to identify the transmit antenna and the corresponding bit pattern. So that we have seen. So we have in hand the value of H matrix. And how do we find the antenna that was activated? So let's say, for example, if second antenna is activated, it actually turns on the second channel. So H2 will be activated from the fading channel. So this can be thought of as, H value multiplied by X value, where X is a vector which looks like this one, 0, 1, 0, 0. So this one will be actually selecting only the H2 value, and rest of the values gets multiplied by 0. So that means the rest of the channels are not activated or not excited. So similarly, for the case of first antenna activation, you get the transmit vector X as 1 followed by 3 zeros. So 3 zeros here represent the inactive state of the remaining transmit antennas. Okay, so the model works like this. Y is the received signal at the receiver, H is the channel matrix, and X is the transmitted vector, or otherwise it also corresponds to the antenna activation pattern. So this also corresponds to antenna activation pattern. It also corresponds to the antenna activation pattern, and N is nothing but the noise at the receiver. Okay, so this is how the space shift keying actually works. So we are actually sending the information based on the X value here. So X is the one which conveys the information, and the non-zero entry in X gives you the antenna which is actually turned on, and rest of the values are 0. That is the space shift keying transmit vector. And we have seen that the number of antennas required in space shift keying grows exponentially. So that is nothing but 2 power b, right? So 2 power b is exponential growth. So if we want to send 10 bits of information, we need 1024 antennas. That is not feasible. So what we can do is go for something called as generalized space shift keying. So what is generalized space shift keying? So we'll see that, but before that, this is the way space shift keying works. So if there is 0, 0 to be transmitted, it will correspond to symbol 0, and this will correspond to antenna 1, and antenna 1 will be activated with the transmitter vector. And if I want to send 0, 1, it will correspond to 1 symbol, and 1 will be mapped onto second antenna. And if we want to activate the second antenna, second column of X will be non-zero, and rest of the values are kept as 0. That means only second antenna is activated, rest of the antennas are kept silent. So that happens for other code words also. So this is how space shift keying works. And we have seen the disadvantage of space shift keying. That is, if we want to send B bits from the transmitter, we need 2 power B antennas. So that is not feasible. So we need to use combination of transmit antennas for achieving higher spectral efficiency. So what is combination of antennas? So let's say, for example, we have first antenna, second antenna, third and fourth antenna, instead of activating one antenna, we can activate pattern of two antennas, right? So we can combine two antennas together and then activate them. And for that, we may not need multiple RF chains also. We just send the same cosine signal from the two antennas, same cosine signal. So only one RF chain is sufficient for activating more than one antenna, because we are sending the same carrier wave using multiple antennas. So one RF chain is sufficient, but instead of activating one antenna, we just activate group of antennas. So how that actually helps us? Let's say, for example, if we are choosing NA antennas from available NT antennas, so the number of combinations will be nothing but NT choose NA, where this represents, let's say, for example, I will put N and R. This represents N factorial, N minus R factorial, R factorial. So this is nothing but the notation for NCR, N choose K, N choose R or N choose K, whatever. So that many combinations of antenna is possible, and each of the combination will correspond to one effective channel value. Let's say, for example, if antenna 1 is activated, H1 will be activated, and at the same time, let's say H2 is also activated, sorry, third antenna is activated, this will give rise to H3. So this will be one combination. And if I have the first antenna activated and the second antenna activated, that will correspond to H1 plus H2. So this will be second pattern. So similarly, we can have NT choose NA antenna combinations, and each of the combination will correspond to one symbol. Okay, so and it is always the case that we have NT 1 will always be lesser than NT NA whenever NA is greater than 1. So this is a property. So that means if we are using more than one number of active antenna, the number of combinations of antenna increases, and because of that we can send more number of bits. So ultimately we are able to encode the antenna activation pattern into the bits, right? So we have one antenna active, but instead of this, let's say, for example, if two antennas are activated, so how many combinations are possible? There will be 4 choose 2 combinations, so that will be 4 factorial, 2 factorial, 2 factorial. So that will be giving rise to 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 divided by 4. So that will be 6 patterns. So that will be 6 patterns. So instead of just 4 patterns, we have 6 patterns here. And if we want to send 3 bits, we need 2 power 3 patterns. We are short of 2 more patterns. So for that, what we can do, instead of NT equal to 4, we can go for NT equal to 5. NT equal to 5. So this can be done. So that's what is done in generalized phase shift keying. So generalized phase shift keying activates NA antenna at a time at the transmitter, and when NA becomes equal to 1, GSSK degenerates to SSK. So that's why this is called as generalized phase shift keying. Okay, that's why this is called as generalized phase shift keying. And since we have NT choose NA antenna combinations, the number of bits that can be transmitted will be nothing but floor of log base 2 of NT choose NA. So this floor operation is like, let's say, for example, we have 3.1. If we floor it, it will be equal to 3. And let's say, for example, 5.6. If we floor it, it will be 5. So we have to take the nearest lesser integer. So that will be given here. And it has an interpretation. I'm not going to give it. It's trivial. So log base 2 of NT choose NA, floor it, you will get the number of bits to be transmitted. Number of bits to be transmitted. And we also have one more thing here, power constraint. So power constraint is always unity. So let's say, for example, the RF chain here can transmit a maximum power of PT, but we are connecting the same RF chain to transmitter antennas. So what we have to do is we have to do a power divider here, such that half of the power goes to the first antenna and half of the power goes to the second antenna. So that is called as a unity power constraint. That means if PT here is 1, the power PT will be equally divided among all the antennas, such that if we sum up all the power, it will be equal to PT equal to 1. So that is the power constraint. So for that to happen, each of the antenna will be getting 1 by NA of the total transmitted power. So this is the power constraint. And that power constraint can be seen here, because in this example we have NT equal to 5, NA equal to 2, and NT choose NA will be like 5 factorial divided by 3 factorial, 2 factorial. So that will be 5 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2. So this will cancel out. So this will cancel out. We have 2 and 2 gone here. So ultimately we have 5 into 2, that will be 10 patterns. So 10 patterns, and out of that we will only use 8 patterns. So that's why we take log base 2 of 10, and this will be close to some 3 point something, some value will come here. And if we put a floor operator here, it will only take the 3. So out of 10 possible combinations, we are only using the 8 combinations. So that's the reason why we are using a floor here, floor operator. So we are using a floor operator here for indicating that. And we have also seen power constraint. So that power constraint is given here, 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2. So since 2 antennas are activated, we get 1 by root 2, because each transmitter antenna gets a power of PT divided by NA. So if this is power, in terms of voltage, it will be square root of PT divided by square root of NA. So that is the reason why we get 1 by square root of 2 here for each of the antenna. So in this case, for first case, antenna 1 and antenna 2 will be activated together. So that's why we get first column and the second column activated. And similarly for the 8th pattern here, antenna 3 and antenna 4 are active. So antenna 3 and antenna 4 means the 3rd and 4th column of the transmit vector X. So that is given here. So this is the example for NT equal to 5 and NA equal to 2. For a generic case of NT and NA, the transmit vector looks like this one. So we have NA non-zero entries and NT minus NA 0 entries. Okay, and the rate that is achieved by GSSK is nothing but this one, floor of log base 2 NT choose NA. So this is NA. So because NT choose NA is always greater than NT choose 1, the rate achieved by GSSK will also be greater than that of SSK. That is the point. And this is the constellation of typical MQAM or MPSK, where the constellation point or MQAM symbol is nothing but X1 and X2, and they are all packed in the same direction. Because of that, error also increases. But if we see GSSK, in GSSK we get antenna combinations as the constellation. So each of the combination will point in a different direction. And we have already seen that the values of H1, H2, number of antennas, each antenna will correspond to different pattern or a signature. And they are different, and that difference actually turns out to be different directions in the vectorial space. And different direction does not confuse the receiver, because each of the constellation will point in different direction. But if you have a same direction for all the symbols, the receiver will obviously get confused. So this will this implies that the bit error rate of APM is larger compared to the bit error rate of SSK. So bit error rate is nothing but confusion. So confusion in APM is larger than the confusion in GSSK. So effectively, the mathematical representation of the discussion we have so far seen is nothing but this one. So we have Y, which is the received signal, and we have the combination of antennas at the transmitter, and that is given by HJ effective. So HJ effective is nothing but sum of different antennas. So that is like if we are, let's say for example, if we are activating antenna 1 and 3, we will be getting H1 plus H2 because both of the antennas are simultaneously activated. So that is denoted by HJ effective. So for different values of the transmitted symbol J, we will get different combination or sum of different transmitter antennas. And we have rho prime here. Rho prime is nothing but the transmitted signal power, and each of the antenna will get rho divided by NT, where rho is the total power and NT is the number of active antenna. So that means the total power of the RF chain is equally divided among the individual antenna, active antenna. And based on the value of J here, we are actually identifying the transmitted information, because we know that each antenna combination will correspond to different value of H1 plus H3 and different values. Based on the different values identified at the receiver, we can identify the actual bit pattern that was used. So that is how we can identify the information. So we have in hand the value of Y, and Y contains the value of HJ effective, and in that information is actually contained by this J. As the value of J changes, the value of H also changes, and if the value of H changes, the value of Y also changes. So let's say that we have the value of Y vector in hand. How do we identify the value of J vector? That is the question of detection. So this is a question which is answered by something called as detection, and we'll see how to do the detection. For that, some bit of probability is necessary. Let's say for example we have a received signal Y, and we want to identify some symbol S cap from the received symbol, and that S cap is nothing but the value of J, and what we have in hand is the value of Y. So how do you identify J given you know the value of Y? So that is based on probability. So that probability is given by likelihood function here. F of S cap given Y is known. So the slash here does not indicate division, it indicates given condition that we know the value of Y. So if we know the value of Y, how do you identify the transmitted symbol S cap? So that actually uses Bayes principle. So that will be giving rise to F of Y given S cap multiplied by P of S and whole thing divided by Fy of Y. So this is based on Bayes rule. So this is based on Bayes rule. So we are actually trying to identify the transmitted symbol S cap. So the transmitted symbol S cap, let's say for example, let's see this example. So symbol J has different values 1, 2, so on till 8. So there are different values of J, and different values of J will have different combination of antennas. So we have to go one by one to this combination of symbol and then substitute it here, and then find out the value of F of S given Y. So that's what is denoted by this mathematical operator. So find out the value, each value of Sj from the constellation S set S, and then substitute that value of Sj here or Si here, and find out the value of Sj that maximizes the likelihood function and take that value of S to be the most likely transmitted symbol. So this is like, based on probability. This is called as maximum a posteriori probability. And it is called so because this f of S given y is called as the posterior probability, because we have the knowledge of y and we are trying to identify Si after we know the value of y. So that is after. It's actually posteriori. Posterior means in Latin it's like after something has happened. Posterior, anterior. Posterior means after. So after we know the value of y, how do you identify the value of Si? And we find out the value of Si, which maximizes the posterior probability. That's why it is maximum posterior probability. And we know from Bayes' rule, we have this formulation and we are only changing the value of S here. And if we see Fy of y is independent of, transmitted symbol S. So we can get rid of this from the expression. So we are left with only this expression. Further, this P of Si will be like one constant value. So let's say, for example, we are transmitting M symbols. The probability P of S1 will be 1 by M for all the values of Si. So this can also be neglected from the maximization. This is not going to change the, likelihood function. So we are only left with the likelihood function Fy of S cap. And this Fy of S cap is actually found out from the PDF of the noise at the receiver. So let's recall that at the receiver we also have something called as eta. This quantifies the noise or models the noise. And this noise is actually Gaussian noise. Gaussian noise. So it will follow the Gaussian density function. So this is the PDF of a Gaussian noise, follows the Gaussian density function. And we know the value of noise here. So let's say, for example, y is S plus n. We can find the value of n to be y minus S. So simply substitute the value of n here as y minus S. So that will do. So we have the likelihood function that y is known and we want to find the value of S. So this is the likelihood function. From this likelihood function, how do we derive the detection criteria, maximal likelihood detection? So remember, the question we started this discussion is, we know the value of y and how do we find out the value of j? That is called as detection, and we are traveling in that direction. Okay, so we have the value of y and we are trying to identify the value of S, which actually maximizes the inequality here. Sorry, which actually maximizes the mathematical function here. And let's say, for example, this is maximization. We can remove this value because this is independent of Sj. And we have a negative sign here. So maximization of negative is nothing but minimization of the positive value. So we can think of this as, minus 1, minus 3, minus 4, maximum value is this one, but if we put it in positive terms, this will be 1, 3 and 4. So this is nothing but minimum. So finding the maximum in negative is equivalent to finding the minimum in positive. So we are trying to find the minimum here, and see this one, this is the observed value, y, received value, and we are checking different values of Si, substitute the value of Si at the receiver, and then find out which is giving the minimum distance, y minus Si. So that is how we identify the transmitted symbol. So that is what is done in space shift keying also. They are using the likelihood function, and from likelihood function they are finding that combination of antenna which minimizes the distance between the received signal y and the ideal constellation point, Hj effective. So this in short can be thought of as, let's say at the receiver we know that we are using some constellation, QPSK constellation, and we know that the received signal lies somewhere here. Okay, so what we will try to do is we will try to find out the distance between the different ideal constellation points and we'll try to find out the distance between the received constellation point y and the different ideal constellation points. So in this example, the least distance is nothing but this distance. So most likely the transmitted symbol would have been this symbol. Okay, this will be the most likely transmitted symbol. So that indirectly translates to finding the distance d, that is nothing but the least distance. So this one will be d3 and this one will be d4. So we are trying to compare the received signal y with the ideal constellation, and then we are finding the ideal constellation which has the least distance between the received signal and the ideal constellation. So that constellation would have been more likely transmitted. So that is what is done here. So we have the received signal, we have the ideal transmitted signal, find out the distance between them, find out the antenna combination which minimizes the distance between the received signal and the ideal signal. So this double bar is nothing but norm. So double bar is nothing but norm. Norm is nothing but the distance between two vectors. That's all. And if we simplify this expression, norm expression, this will be like turning out to be something like real part of y minus this component Hermitian. So entire thing here is a vector. So this is a vector, and find the Hermitian of the vector, multiply it with this vector. So here we have Hj effective. So you can change the value of J effective and then change the value of Hj effective and find out that combination which is giving you the maximum value of this real part. And that combination will be the most likely transmitted, transmitted symbol or the antenna activation pattern. So that is the logic behind SSK. So let's now go to the program part. So I have covered essentially the transmitter side and the receiver side of SSK. So let's now go to the program part. How do we do the coding of this one in MATLAB? Yeah, it's running. So first thing we have to address is how do we design the transmitter in MATLAB, and after that we have to find how do we design the receiver in MATLAB. So these are two lines of code that is based on this expression, simply this expression. So we have to realize this expression, this is expression 2, and we have to design the transmitter, right? So the transmitter is based on this expression. So this is expression 1. So how do we realize these two expressions in MATLAB? That is the question in hand. So we'll try to see how it is done in MATLAB. So let me share. I hope my screen is visible, right? So Kripakaran.
Yeah. Your screen is visible. And
Okay.
font size is also fine.
Okay, fine. So see here, there are many lines of code. I'm not going to explain all of them, provided I only have 30 minutes of time and I have to cover spatial modulation. So essentially I have given you two expressions here. Expression 1 is the expression for the transmitted signal. So I will go back to the slide. So expression 1 here is nothing but y. So y is nothing but, y is nothing but square root of rho prime multiplied by Hj effective plus the noise. And this Hj effective will be the sum of Hj of I, provided this value of I starts from 1 to Na, because there are Na active antennas. So this is a summation of a vector, and this H vector will be one column from the H matrix, actually H2, so on and so forth till H vector Nt. So this will be actually a vector where you have Nr rows and Nt columns, because we have Nt columns here. So we have to realize this expression in MATLAB, and that is done like this. So I have given the summation here, and I have the matrix H here, and I am choosing all the values of rows, but I am specific about the columns. See, the first dimension is always the rows. I am taking all the rows, because if I go back to this expression, in the summation I am taking all the rows. The rows are taken, entire row is taken. That's why I have given an undersign here. But we are choosing only specific columns, Hj of I. So what are those columns? So let's go back to this example. So if bit pattern of 0, 0, 0 is coming, I will be choosing only the first column and the second column. The first column and second column will be only chosen. So Hj effective will be nothing but H1 vector plus H2 vector. So this can be thought of as you have all the rows from the H matrix and pick out only the first column and the second column. This is for a specific symbol. Let's say symbol is L. So this value 1 space 2 is nothing but a vector, and MATLAB understands if I give this type of vector into the second dimension, it understands that it has to pick H1 and H2, the first column and the second column of the channel matrix. So this I have given in MATLAB like this one. So chi is a combination of all the antenna patterns. So I'll just run the code, you can see. So it won't take much time after the first run. So let's just wait for a few minutes. Yeah. So see here, we have the value of chi, and the value of chi here is nothing but So value of chi here is nothing but the combination of antennas. So first combination is first antenna, second combination is first antenna, third antenna. So many combinations are there. Okay, so this value is nothing but this value. Okay, so this value is nothing but this value. So that I am giving in MATLAB as this one. Oh, where is that? Yeah, this one. So space B of L, this will actually be corresponding to the the combination. So this is the first combination, right? So this value is nothing but space B. So 1 corresponds to space B, and this one, each value in this one will correspond to one row in chi. So chi is a matrix with, let's say for example, 8 rows and 2 columns. So this is like the first column and second column, and there are 8 such rows. So that is nothing but this one. This is chi. I am choosing one value out of the chi based on the space D, which symbol I am transmitting. And after that, I am summing it up because I have the summation of vectors. So this summation can be done in MATLAB using sum of certain thing, and we are summing the columns. So we have to put second dimension. So I am doing the summation here in the second dimension, and I am adding the noise also. So the noise also is added, and noise is generated like this one. So most of the papers they will discuss noise to be having unit variance or unit power, and for unit power we need a scaling of 1 by square root 2 for the noise components. So I have put a square root 1 by square root of 2 here. So this is only purely for maintaining the power of noise to be 1 watt. So this is the transmitter. Essentially this single line of code is the transmitter. And how about the receiver? And we have seen that receiver is nothing but this equation. Receiver is nothing but this equation. So I am realizing the values here. One part of the value is y minus square root of rho prime divided by 2 multiplied by hj effective. Find out the Hermitian of that vector and then multiply it with another vector. So I'm just doing it here. So I find out the effective value of the transmitted channel by summing the different columns of H matrix. And after that, I am finding the y minus square root of rho prime divided by 2 and H effective. Find the Hermitian of that and then multiply it with the H effective. And then I am saving it in another variable gm. And ultimately, if you go back to this expression, we have to find out the value of j which maximizes the real component. So we have to find out how to maximize this. So that is done here. I am finding out the maximum value of j that maximizes the value of j. So that maximum value is given here. So that will be the actual d prime or d cap or s cap. So that is after this is like a conversion of the symbol to binary. Everything is trivial. So we have the index, right, space d. This corresponds to 1 bit pattern. So this conversion is happening in the rest of the line. That's all. So essentially the code for GSSK is just 2-liner. Rest of the lines are supporting. Okay, so that's all. So this is space shift keying in generalized version. And one more thing I want to discuss here is we have to generate the different combination of antenna patterns. So how do we do that? So for that purpose, we have nChooseK function in MATLAB. So we are giving 1 to nt as a vector here. Let's say, for example, we have 1 colon nt. It will be a vector, and this will be the indices of the transmit antennas. So we have to choose 2 antennas out of the 5 antennas. So that combinations will be done by nChooseK function. So if I put nChooseK of 1 colon nt comma 2, it will put out all the combinations. So 1 comma 2 is given here, 1 and 3 is given here, 1 and 4 is given here. So all the patterns are possible. Okay, so this is the function for getting different combinations of transmit antenna combinations. So that's how it is done. So SSK is this much. We will now see spatial modulation. So I see we have 30 minutes of time. Let me see how much I can complete. Spatial modulation won't take much time because you already have the primer for space shift keying. So let's now see what is spatial modulation. So spatial modulation, in simplest term, it's nothing but space shift keying. Only difference is that, let's say for example, we go back to this example. I'll just rub everything so that it becomes clean. So you have 4 antennas, and what we do essentially here is, for a bit pattern, we just choose one antenna and then send one unmodulated cosine signal. Unmodulated cosine signal. The word is unmodulated. We have a cosine signal which is nothing but a cos omega ct plus theta. We can change the value of a, we can change the value of omega and theta. Why do we underutilize the degrees of freedom we have in hand? We do not use, we are not using the value of a, variation of a, variation of omega, variation of theta. We are just sending an unmodulated cosine signal using one chosen antenna. So instead of using one unmodulated cosine signal, why not send modulated cosine signal in the same antenna? So that essentially turns the space shift keying into spatial modulation. That's all. So that is the difference between space shift keying and spatial modulation. So in space shift keying, what we do is choose one antenna, send an unmodulated cosine signal to the receiver. And what is spatial modulation is, choose one antenna and send a modulated cosine signal through that antenna. So at the receiver, you have two pieces of information. One piece of information is, we are activating one antenna. So one piece of information is antenna index. So that is one piece of information. And the second piece of information actually comes from the value of theta and a. So that is like, if you modulate the theta and a of the cosine signal, it will turn out to be QAM signal, because you are modulating both the amplitude and the phase of the signal. So the second piece of information actually comes from modulation of the carrier. So the modulation actually gives rise to QAM symbol. And let's say for example, if I have MQAM symbol in addition to the information from antenna can convey log base 2 of m bits. So let's call this as B1 bits. And antenna index can send floor of NT choose NA bits. So let's call this as B2. So we have two pieces of information. One is B2 number of bits from the choice of antenna indices, and B1 number of bits from the choice of MQAM symbol. So this is called as spatial multiplexing in terms of spatial modulation. Spatial multiplexing in terms of spatial modulation. Why it is called spatial multiplexing? Because we are able to send two pieces of information, one in terms of antenna index and other in terms of modulation, together. So together is the word. We are sending them together. So that's why this is called as spatial multiplexing. Multiplexing means combining many signals together, right? So this is why spatial modulation is a form of spatial multiplexing, because we are multiplexing two pieces of information together. So that is spatial modulation. So let's see the math behind this. So before that, we will see the transmitter structure. So we have seen that spatial modulation transmits one MQAM symbol over the chosen antenna. So first we have to choose the antenna. So choice of the antenna comes from the variable P. So we pick out the value of P from a set of 1 to NT. Pick out one antenna out of NT antennas. And let's say for example, I have picked the antenna 2. And using that antenna, send one MQAM symbol or MPSK symbol. Send one MQAM symbol or MPSK symbol. It's nothing but sending a modulated cosine wave through that antenna. Second piece of information is coming from Q. So we are able to send two pieces of information in SM. And still we only need a single RF chain because we only have one MQAM or MPSK symbol modulation. So one MQAM MPSK symbol modulation requires only one RF chain. So that's all. And at the receiver, we have the value of Y, and the signal from the transmitter undergoes all type of scattering, diffraction, Doppler, attenuation. Everything will be there because of the fading channel, and all these effects are summarized by this matrix, H matrix. And we have seen that spatial modulation, in addition to activating the antenna, also sends one MQAM symbol. So that MQAM symbol is nothing but SQ. And this SQ comes from the choice of the Q value here. Okay, and if you observe this vector, X vector has all zeros, all the values are zeros. So all the rows are zeros except for the pth row. So that means we are only activating the pth row, that means pth antenna at the transmitter. So that is signified by having a non-zero entry at the pth row of the transmit vector X. So if I do this one, what will essentially happen is we have H1 vector, H2 vector. So let's say I only have NT equal to 2. So I can send one combination of symbol like S1 0. This is one combination, and the second combination will be 0 S1. So this will be corresponding to antenna 1, and this will be corresponding to antenna 2. Antenna 2, through that you are sending one S1. In antenna 1 you are sending one S1. So these are the combination of symbols. So this S1, whenever is transmitted using first antenna, this will be experiencing fading from the first transmitter and the receiver at the receiver side. So that means the signal received will be looking like H1 vector multiplied by S1. And in addition to that, we will also have the noise at the receiver. So this is the essential part of the spatial modulation, and that is given by H matrix multiplied by X matrix. So this is nothing but S matrix, and S matrix contains many zero rows and only one non-zero row, and that non-zero row actually gives you the antenna which is activated with certain MQAM symbol. So that that is given by this X vector, and the form of X vector looks like this one. And we have the receiver noise that is modeled by the N vector. So the single RF chain needed, only one RF chain is needed because we are only sending one symbol. And in spatial modulation, bit stream from the source is divided into log base 2 of M plus log base 2 of NT bits. And log base 2 of NT bits are used for choosing the antenna, and log base 2 of M bits are used for modulating the cosine signal transmitted from that antenna. In other words, selecting the constellation symbol. So this is how the spatial modulation works. So let's say, for example, we have 0 or 1 for S1 and 0 or 1 for S2. So this 0 or 1 will correspond to BPSK. So 0 or 1 will correspond to BPSK, and this 0 or 1 will correspond to first antenna or the second antenna. So let's say, for example, I have S1 equal to 0 and S2 is equal to 0. So S2 equal to 0 may correspond to first antenna 1, and using that antenna 1, send this S1. So S1 corresponds to 0. This correspondingly will represent -1 in BPSK. So send a -1 using the first antenna, that's all. And let's say, for example, if we are getting S1 equal to 0, same thing, but S2 is equal to 1. Go to the second antenna and then send the -1 value from that antenna. And meanwhile, you keep the first antenna silent. That's all. So this is spatial modulation. So spatial modulation is a generic version of space shift keying, where we use the degrees of freedom available in the modulating waveform, cosine signal. We take the cosine signal, use the phase information and amplitude information of cosine signal, and then send another piece of information. So that is the difference between space shift keying and spatial modulation. And the transmitter for spatial modulation is given here. So we have the H matrix and we have the X matrix, and the X matrix looks like this one, all 0 entries except for one row. That row will be corresponding to the antenna, the only antenna which is active, and through that active antenna you are sending some information, MQAM information. So that will be SQ. Okay, so that will be the structure of the transmitted vector X. So that structure is like, let's say, for example, we have H matrix given by H1, H2, so on, H and T. And let's just multiply this with, some combination of SQ. Rest of the values are 0 here. So this SQ is sitting in, let's say, for example, J equal to third row. So rest of the rows are 0. That means the entries here will be equal to 0 because it gets multiplied with 0. And ultimately what you get as a result of this H into X will be H3 row will get multiplied with SQ. So that is given here. So SQ gets multiplied by certain column of the H matrix. So H3 column gets multiplied by SQ. So that is the piece of information you have at the receiver. And if you compare the equation with SSK will have some column of the transmitted matrix H1 or Hj anyway, and that will be added with noise. So there will be no piece of information for modulation. It will be just the one column out of the H matrix. And in addition to that column, we also have another piece of information here. That is nothing but ST. Okay, so this is the equation for transmitter. This is the equation for transmitter. And what do we do for the receiver? We will see what is done for receiver. Before that, let us just see the constellation of spatial modulation. So we know that there are two pieces of information. One piece of information actually comes from the antenna, and the second piece of information actually comes from the MQAM. So we have two pieces of information. So this MQAM is already a two-dimensional signal. MQAM is also already a two-dimensional signal. So those two dimensions are utilized here. So where do we put the antenna dimension? Only available choice is Z-axis. Put it in Z-axis, that's all. So you can put first antenna in the first point of Z-axis, second antenna second point, and the rest of the antennas as the upcoming points. And each of the antenna will be like identified by its own H value. Okay, so each of the antennas will be identified by its own H value. And whenever you have a unique value of H, and that gets multiplied with certain value of SQ, that combination will also be unique. H3 SQ will also be unique if you compare this value with H1 SQ, because the value of H here are unique, even though if you have the same value of SQ, the multiplied value of H1 SQ and H3 SQ will be different. So in order to say that they are different, we are putting the same MQAM constellation in the z-axis, different plane of the z-axis. So this constellation will correspond to H1 SQ, and this constellation will correspond to H4 SQ. Okay, so they are like different. And how do we say that they are different? We say that they are in the different planes of the z-axis, and they do not interfere with each other because they are different. We can easily identify H1 SQ from H4 SQ because H1 and H4 are totally different, even though the value of SQ is just the same. So this is the constellation of spatial modulation, and the constellation of spatial modulation is 3D. Okay, constellation of spatial modulation is 3D. 2 dimensions come from MQAM and the third dimension comes from the antenna. Okay, so how do we transmit information symbol? Let's say, for example, we have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. And how do we send this 0, 0, 1, 1? So we have seen that we have to split this into log base 2 of NT bits and log base 2 of M bits. We can take NT equal to 4 because 4 points are here. So NT is 4, and we can take M as 4 because 4 constellation points are there. So if I substitute here, I have to get 2 values for bits from the transmitter antenna and 2 values of bits for MQAM constellation. So this first 2 bits will be used for choosing the antenna. So antenna is chosen, and the second 2 bits are used for choosing the constellation symbol. So 0, 1 corresponds to this symbol. So together 1, 1, 1, 0 will be corresponding to this symbol from the 4th plane. Similarly, if you want to send 0, 0, 0, 1, so first 2 bits will be used for identifying the transmit antenna. So you have to go to this constellation, and the second 2 bits are used for identifying the transmitted symbol. So 0, 1 corresponds to this symbol, so this symbol will be transmitted. So it will be H1, S1. So this is how the spatial modulation constellation works. So this is the model of transmitter. So we have already seen this to be equation 3. How do we receive the symbol? So that again is based on maximum a posteriori probability, and which will turn out to be ML detection, maximal likelihood detection. And the maximal likelihood detection here is given by equation 4. So if we realize equation 3, that will be sufficient for realizing the transmitter, and if we realize equation 4, that will be sufficient for realizing the receiver. That's all. Okay, and JQ here corresponds to Hj multiplied by Xq. Hj multiplied by Sq, and the value of Y here is nothing but the received signal. So we have to find out the value of J and Q from the received signal. So that is called detection. So we have something in hand, and from that we have to identify what was actually transmitted. So that transmitted information is nothing but the antenna information and the MQAM information. So Q comes from the MQAM information and J comes from the antenna information. So we have to find them together, antenna information and MQAM information. So how do we realize expression 4 and expression 3 in MATLAB? So that is another simple question. So that's already done here. I won't take you through all of the code. I will just take you only to the essential part of the code. So first we have to understand the equation 3. So that equation 3 is done here. So this is nothing but the equation 3. So I'll just go back to equation 3 so that you can figure out what's happening. So we have the square root of SNR here, and we have the Hj value here. So Hj is nothing but jth column of H matrix. Jth column of H matrix. So jth column of H matrix can be found out like all the rows of that matrix, provided it is coming from the jth column or some lth symbol. So this is the syntax for finding out the jth column of H matrix for a specific symbol. So that is done here. So this is H matrix. I am finding the jth column of H matrix for a specific symbol. And once we found out the jth column of H matrix, what we have to do is multiply it with xq. xq is nothing but mquam symbol. mquam symbol. So just multiply it, that's all. So we have the pam symbol. It's a variable to save the mquam symbol. I have used it as pam, but it's actually a quam. And then multiply it with the square root of SNR because it's there in the equation. So this essentially completes the transmitter. And what do we do in the receiver? So the receiver is given by this expression. I did not realize this expression per se. I just realized this expression, because the number of lines can be reduced if I realize this expression. So I have just realized norm of y minus square root of rho h x j q norm square. So this expression is realized here, and you can see that this is nothing but the Euclidean distance between the received signal and the ideal constellation point. So this is just done here. So this is just the norm of the distance between the received signal point and the ideal constellation point. And I am finding out this value for different values of ideal constellation point from mquam constellation and one ideal constellation point for h value. So that is like I have to iterate the function over 2 dimensions. One, actually it should be 3 dimension. So first dimension is nothing but the antenna dimension, and rest of the 2 dimension comes from mquam. So I just iterate it over 1 dimension. Mquam is nothing but one symbol, right? So I just iterate it over 1 dimension. So these 2 dimension actually represent 3 dimension in the SM constellation. So I just find out this D metric and then find out where the D metric is actually minimum, because we have to find out the minimum value here. So that value of J and that value of Q, which minimizes the function here or minimizes this function, is actually the estimate, closest estimate of the transmitted symbol. So I'm just finding out the minimum value of J and Q, the value of J and Q which minimizes the D metric. So that value of J and Q I am taking as the transmitted antenna index and the transmitted mquam index. That's all. So this is how the receiver of spatial modulation is done. Okay, so pros and cons, we have already discussed all of this. So all of these are like given here only for reference. So we have essentially discussed all of these points during the course of the lecture, and this brings us to the end of the session. We only have 2 minutes left. If you have queries, you can ask me. Since we started with the condition, if time permits, we can go for dynamic SSK. We may not be able to cover this, but I will share the PPT with professor. We can, if you have queries, you can come back to me. My mail ID is mahes@nitt.edu. So if you have queries, write to me. Okay, so if you have queries, if you want to ask it live, you can ask me now. Any queries? Kirupakaran, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're
Okay.
audible.
Any queries?
Sir, good morning.
Yeah.
Does the generalized spatial modulation require 1 hour of chain or more than 1 hour of chain?
Generalized spatial modulation requires more than 1 hour of chain. Generalized SSK does not require more than 1 hour of chain, but generalized SM requires more than 1 hour of chain.
Okay. If we compare the generalized spatial modulation with the conventional MIMO,
Mm.
which one is better performance wise?
GSM will be better because see, we have seen this constellation diagram, right? So I will just show it for another quick reference. See, the constellation symbol, a constellation of conventional MIMO will look like something like this one. So all the symbols x1, x2 will be packed in one direction. So let's say, for example, in the best case, we go for B blast. In B blast, we have multiple transmitter antennas. So the symbol will be like packed in different directions. But if we go for GSM, it will be like different directions, but the distance between the different vectors will be larger. So obviously, GSM will perform better. Will perform better than V blast. But GSM will have its own complexity at the receiver because detection is slightly more involved. But they can be addressed using different techniques. Spear decoder, other types of detectors are there which are less complex. To answer your question, GSM will perform better than V blast in terms of BER.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, what is the real-time application of this modulation scheme, sir?
This is to be frank, this is not used at the moment. This is like in the roadmap for 6G. So yeah, so we are yet to receive 5G, but 5G is already implemented. It's not rolled out in India. 5G is implemented, but it is not rolled out in India. That is the truth. So 5G has V-blast and other techniques, but this spatial modulation comes under the umbrella of generic modulation scheme called as index modulation. So this index modulation is a candidate for 6G. This is still under study. So
Okay,
what we
sir.
are doing now is
So what would be
future.
the predicted data rate, sir? Predicted data rate?
Data rate is in our hand, right? Designer can choose it. You can talk of spectral efficiency. Data rate is in the hand of the designer. You can choose any data rate you want, but spectral efficiency will be higher for index modulation compared to conventional MIMO scheme. Spectral efficiency, that is the question. So you are talking about BPS.
Utilization of channel spectrum.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You are talking about BPS. I'm saying about BPS per hertz. So BPS per hertz will be larger in terms of index modulation compared to conventional MIMO schemes. So this again is like again designer's choice. So in LTE, 4G LTE, we are maximum using 256 QAM for given bandwidth. So 256 means it is like 2 power 8, right? So we will get 8 BPS per hertz. That is the spectral efficiency at the moment in 4G LTE. So this is chosen by the designers because maybe this is the optimal point, which is not too consuming in energy terms, but at the same time gives you a trade-off for some improved spectral efficiency. Like you cannot go for 4 BPS per hertz because that will be like reduced data rate. So we use 256 QAM in 4G LTE. So this is again at the hands of the designer, and the choices the designer has, as we have seen in the beginning of the lecture, is like you have energy efficiency, spectral efficiency for trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to maximize the energy efficiency, of course, you have to sacrifice the spectral efficiency. So we cannot say that, index modulation or spatial modulation will achieve this much of spectral efficiency, because that is up to the designer. They can choose what value they want, but there will always be a trade-off. That's what we can say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any more queries?
Sir, and what could be the any is specific design is there to space antenna between, because we are going for a multiple antennas.
Yeah.
Is there any specific design to keep the antenna distance?
Yeah, the antenna distance should at least be lambda by 2. We have discussed it, right? So the antenna distance must be at least lambda by 2. I think I have discussed it before. It's not shown here, but we discussed it in the beginning. So the distance must be at least lambda by 2.
And in future, sir, in future, the Wi-Fi devices, access point or accessing device, desktop or laptop will be the tiny one. Will not be
Yeah.
bigger like conventional devices.
Yeah.
If the device becomes a tiny, and how we can keep these antennas?
The distance becomes tiny. So the lambda by 2 should also be tiny. If lambda by 2 should be tiny, FC should be very large, because FC is nothing but C by lambda. And if FC should be large, it should go to millimeter wave. That's all. This is 6G and 5G. We also have in 5G you have FR2, right? FR2, frequency region 2. So that is nothing but millimeter wave. So you can pack many antennas together.
So size of the antenna become small.
Space between the antenna becomes small, so size of the antenna can also be small, because
Yes,
if we design antenna like the
Yes,
first
but
case
the antenna is-
dipole antenna.
Yes.
Dipole antenna should have a length of lambda by 2, right? So obviously lambda reduces, the length of the antenna also reduces. And also the distance between the antenna also reduces, because we need at least lambda by 2 distance between the antennas, which will again reduce, because
The antenna becomes a tiny, sir. We need to pump more power to reach the farthest destination, sir.
Yeah, that is because of scattering, right? Rayleigh fading. Inverse distance law is there, right? So attenuation is inversely proportional to d square, and also frequency. So if frequency is
We have
attenuation.
Yes, sir. Either we have to pump more power, otherwise we have to keep larger number of antennas in small distances to
See,
cover.
you are coming actually to one thing called as beam forming. So you are saying we have to pump more power and keep more antennas, right? We need not pump more power in all the direction, but in a specific direction. So that's why if we go for millimeter wave, we have something called as beam forming.
Yes, all the antennas are forming beams, sir.
Yeah, so that is mainly important, because in millimeter wave, the communication is mostly line of sight. So LOS communication will be there in millimeter wave, because reflected signals will not be like very dominant in high frequency. They will not bounce back to the receiver.
This is why I have asked applications, real-time application, a Wi-Fi or LoRaWAN like that.
Yeah,
so
LoRa is like long range. LoRa will be long range, but
line
if
of
you want
sight
application for this index modulation, it can be applied anywhere, provided it depends on the band of operation. So if we use FR1 for index modulation, it can go for long range also. But if you use it in FR2, it can go only for short range, small cell, personal area network, local area network. That type of local area network, it comprises Wi-Fi. So it's like choice of the frequency we use for sending the modulation. So you can send QAM modulation both in FR1 and FR2, right? So it's up to you. Choice is up to you. If you want to go for longer distance, go for FR1. If you want to go for shorter distance, but high data rate, go for FR2. That's all.
Yes, sir. When it is being used in Wi-Fi applications, we need a omnidirectional distribution of.
That again is a question of antenna designer. So you can go for antenna omnidirectional antenna using dipole or monopole. But if you want specific direction antenna, you have to go for a different antenna design. I'm not an expert in that. Only my superficial knowledge. Can you come again?
Nothing, sir. We can go for different antennas,
Yeah.
depends on our requirements. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Nice answers I got.
Yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
Your voice sounds familiar. I don't know your name.
Sir, actually, I am Janardhanam. I was working as an assistant professor in Anna University, Dindivanam campus.
Okay.
Now working in central government, sir.
Okay, good.
I might have heard somewhere in the conference hall.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I hope Gribagaran might have known me.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice piece of explanation.
Yeah, thank you.
Those who are doing research in this area, they can begin with these contents.
Yeah,
To be
helpful for them. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Any more queries? If we are not eating into the other speakers' time, we can take quick questions, or else the organizers can decide.
So we can go for break, sir.
Any questions from the audience? Any other questions? Okay. So it was indeed a great time, Dr. Mageshwaran. So the
Thank you,
talk
sir. Thank
very,
you.
very informative, and it was very crystal clear. That was, I'm very happy about it. Each and every point you explained it very neatly, very passionately, and yes, well and good. So I'm very happy about this presentation, and I'm sure that this is going to feed a lot of information and interest to the participants in this area. So thank you, Dr.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the invitation, and I feel happy and delighted to give this talk in my alma mater. Thank you for the invitation.